Kevin Gordon here from Monticello.com, now in the 2013 Lexus LX570, the Land Cruiser based big Lexus, and one of the those vehicles that you do expect to be here when the end of time finally arrives. This one's outfitted with the full terrain management system, which gets you if you can hear it. It gets you a full sort of speed control system. So they've taken hill descent control one step further and actually made it so that it does the acceleration too. I mean, basically, you can take your feet off of both the gas and the brake and you just steer, and it does everything else for you. It's controllable by a little dial down here on the center console. On some of the 4Runners, it's up here. And so you get 5 speeds that you can go through for this. So you can turn it up to a higher speed, we'll start to go higher. In 4-wheel drive low as it is now, the air suspension in this lifts you all the way up. It should be interesting to see how this does with this coarse, just because of its exterior size. I mean, it is definitely not a small vehicle. And at a sticker price of $88,000, it prices actually pretty comparably to the base Range Rover, the big of the Land Rovers. So we'll see how, compare and contrast this against that to see how it does. I will tell you, from a fit and finish perspective, Lexus continues to really know what they're doing. It is a beautiful thing in here. I mean, panel gaps are amazingly small and everything's perfectly consistent. The seats are a bit cushiony and couchy, but they're definitely comfortable and very adjustable and supportive where you might want them to be. And again, just to be clear, I've yet to touch either the gas or the brake. So far, when I've wanted to adjust my speed, I've done it with a little switch that sits in between the seats. Makes a bunch of racket in the process, but you know, no worse than ABS pulsing or traction control seems to sound in most cars these days. Again, I think the biggest detriment there will be to this is its size in some of the tighter places as you go through this course. But it's actually the big benefit of the crawl control that this has, which is if you put it in its slowest setting, it really does just creep along and allow you to very carefully place it where you'd want it to be. There we go. It's still extremely well managed off-road, this thing. We'll see if we can rip off our right rear camera at some point today. If we do, we'll go ahead and get it and put it back on. I don't think we'll hurt a contour too much. This is where the size of something like this starts to become a bit more of an impediment than you'd really want. But if it'll fit between the gap, it seems like it runs along. I mean, it really is just sort of silly amazing how far technology's come. I literally, other than to stop to talk to people, have yet to touch the gas or the brake. I've just been moving this dial up and down to get it. And sure, you could argue it takes some of the fun out of the whole thing. But I'd have to imagine if you were a standard LX570 buyer and you really do need to drive your car off-road at some point, it's pretty much exactly the way you'd want it to behave. I hate to say it, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people buying this car to go take it to off-road parks and see what parts of it they can break. Yet again, in one of those areas where traction has been a challenge for a couple of cars today. You just let the computers keep doing their work and moving power to where there seems to be traction, and it does just what it's supposed to. Now let's go see if we can make some new ruts and how well this thing rides along when you stick it in the mud. And right now it's on the crab pretty good. So I've got the rear wheels heavily in one of the ruts, and the front's riding up on the ridges of them. I'll try to do that here too. Try to flatten some things out as we go through them, and we slide into the ruts. Which actually works out just fine. I love crabbing, it's the best. Your front wheels are one place and your rears are following a different track. There we go, get it out of the rut. Let's see, will it drive up out of it? Oh man, that's impressive. It's got to be traction control that allows this to independently brake one of the wheels to get it so that it actually can pull itself out of ruts like that, because it's definitely not the tires. Yet again, you've got a pretty all-season-y, not really a mud and sand tire on these. And yet, it can drive itself up one of the rut lips to ride back on top of it. Then one of those other interesting tidbits about both the LX570 and the Land Cruiser on which it's based is how few of them they sell a year. In some ways, if you want real exclusivity with your high-end SUV, one of these is what's to buy. Land Cruiser, they sell about 1,500 units a year, which really puts it in Lamborghini Gallardo territory more than your average SUV. And the LX is similar in number. So really, if you want something that's unique, this over a Range Rover is an interesting choice. Now, does it have the absolute off-road capability that a Range Rover does? Probably not, and from a panache perspective, well, really that winds up being a matter of opinion. Come on, get up there. Oh yeah, good job, truck. But it's one heck of a capable thing. Running along at about 25-degree angle here as we go through the mud. Hopefully on the side camera view you can get a good view of the actual trajectory we're on. And really the reason we're doing this is to help the guys who are running the course today try to run more dirt into the bottom of the ruts instead of just letting everybody run through the bottoms of them, because some of the cars that are out today don't really have the ground clearance to be able to deal with the depth of some of the trenches that are being created. I have to tell you, I'm actually pretty impressed by the LX570. For something that's as luxurious as this is, it still is it's built off such an amazingly capable base that the darn thing really does still work. Trying to carry a little bit of speed through here. See how the suspension does. Very, very nice. Exactly as it is supposed to. In fact, actually the suspension of the LX does a very nice job of not feeling like it's living at the top of its bump stops. So in the Land Rovers, both the LR4 and the Range Rover, when you put them in their full off-roady mode, they live off-roady mode, technical term. They live so close to the top of their suspension travel that you're constantly sort of running into the top of the travel, which makes it so that as the wheels drop off you do get a bit of a jerk. But with this, I haven't really encountered it, which is kind of interesting, considering the suspension setup underneath this is not as complex as the Range Rover's is. But we'll see how it does in the articulation zones that we're coming up to now. We'll put it in crawly mode and see how our articulation is. Alright, so we got some wheels off the ground there. No good. Okay. Good, 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 good. And it settles itself right back down. Good, man. It really does do a nice job with this stuff. Let's see if we can get the left wheel off the ground. Good. Right, left front off the ground. Good. Now we're gonna lean an LX570 way over on its side. See how it copes. I think actually we're gonna get close to dragging a camera on this one. It does that. Actually feels the calmest out of all of the cars at this kind of angle. Very nice job. Very, very